The shrill ring of my phone pierced the air, shattering the fragile peace I'd managed to cultivate during my rare day off. I knew who it was before I even glanced at the screen. Simon, my husband, the man who'd turned my life upside down with his latest scheme. "Caroline, we need to talk about Mom." Simon's voice crackled through the speaker, tension evident in every syllable. I sighed, pinching the bridge of my nose. "Simon, I thought we settled this yesterday. I can't quit my job to take care of Patricia full-time. It's just not feasible." "But she needs us, Caroline. She's my mother, for God's sake. She had a terrible fall, and you're a nurse. Who better to look after her?" I felt my blood pressure rising. "I'm a nurse at the hospital, Simon. That's my career, not a convenient skill set for you to exploit whenever it suits you." "Exploit? Is that what you think I'm doing?" His voice rose an octave. "I'm trying to take care of my family." "And what about our family, Simon? What about our future? Your business venture failed. We're barely staying afloat as it is. My job is the only thing keeping us from financial ruin." There was a heavy pause on the other end of the line. When Simon spoke again, his voice was low and dangerous. "So that's it then? Money is more important to you than family?" I felt as if I'd been slapped. "How dare you? I've supported you through thick and thin. I stood by you when you quit your stable job to chase your dreams. I've been the one holding us together while you've been off playing entrepreneur." "Playing entrepreneur?" Simon's voice dripped with venom. "I was trying to build a better life for us." "And how did that work out, Simon? We're drowning in debt, and now you want me to quit my job to become your mother's full-time caretaker, the same mother who can't stand the sight of me?" "She doesn't hate you, Caroline. She's just difficult." I laughed bitterly. "Difficult? That's the understatement of the century. She's made it clear from day one that I'm not good enough for her precious son." "Look, I know it's not ideal, but—" "Not ideal?" I interrupted, my voice rising. "Simon, your mother fell down the stairs because she refused to use the walker we bought her. She won't listen to reason. How am I supposed to care for someone who won't even accept help?" "She'll listen to you if you're there full-time. You just need to give it a chance." I closed my eyes, trying to calm the storm of emotions raging inside me. "Simon, I can't do this. I won't do this. I love you, but I won't set myself on fire to keep your mother warm." "So that's it? You're choosing your job over my mother's well-being, over our marriage?" His words hit me like a physical blow. "That's not fair, Simon. You can't put this all on me. We're supposed to be a team." "Well, it doesn't feel like we're much of a team right now, does it?" The bitterness in his voice was palpable. I felt tears pricking at the corners of my eyes. "Simon, please, we need to talk about this rationally. Can you come home so we can discuss this face-to-face?" There was a long pause before he responded. "Fine. I'll be there in an hour. But Caroline, something's got to give. We can't go on like this." As the line went dead, I sank onto the couch, my head in my hands. How had we come to this? The man I'd loved since high school, the life we'd built together, it was all hanging by a thread. And as I sat there waiting for Simon to arrive, I couldn't shake the feeling that our conversation was going to change everything. I remember the day Simon dropped his bombshell like it was yesterday. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow through our kitchen window as I stirred a pot of pasta sauce. Simon burst through the door, his face flushed with excitement. "Caroline, I've got big news," he exclaimed, wrapping his arms around me from behind. I turned, raising an eyebrow. "Oh? Did you get that promotion?" He shook his head, grinning from ear to ear. "Even better. I quit." The wooden spoon clattered to the floor. "You what?" "I quit my job," Simon repeated, his eyes sparkling. "I'm starting my own business." I felt the blood drain from my face. "Simon, are you out of your mind? We have a mortgage, car payments, and we've been talking about starting a family. How can you just quit without discussing it with me first?" His smile faltered slightly. "I thought you'd be happy for me. This is our chance to build something of our own, to secure our future." I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart. "And what exactly is this business?" "It's a tech startup," Simon explained, his enthusiasm returning. "We're developing an app that will revolutionize the way people shop for groceries. It's going to be huge, Caroline." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to share in his excitement. But all I could think about was the mountain of responsibilities we had and how precarious our situation had suddenly become. Simon, I love that you're ambitious, but this is a huge risk. What if it doesn't work out? He cupped my face in his hands, his eyes boring into mine. It will work out. I promise. I've done the research, I've got investors lined up. This is our ticket to financial freedom, Caroline. Don't you trust me? And there it was, the magic words. Trust. How could I tell him that while I loved him with all my heart, I didn't trust his judgment on this? How could I express my fears without crushing his dreams? Of course I trust you, I said softly, hating myself for the lie. I'm just worried. This is a big change. Simon's face lit up. I know it's scary, but think about it. In a year or two, we'll be set for life. No more worrying about money. No more living paycheck to paycheck. We can start that family we've been talking about, buy a bigger house, travel the world. His enthusiasm was infectious, and I found myself getting caught up in the dream. Maybe he was right. Maybe this was our chance at a better life. Okay, I said, forcing a smile. Let's do it. But promise me you'll be careful. We can't afford to lose everything. Simon pulled me into a tight embrace. I promise, Caroline, I won't let you down. As we stood there in our tiny kitchen, the forgotten pasta sauce burning on the stove, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were standing on the edge of a cliff. I wanted to believe in Simon's dream, to have faith in our future. But a nagging voice in the back of my mind whispered that this could be the beginning of the end. Later that night, as Simon slept peacefully beside me, I stared at the ceiling, my mind racing. How would we manage if his business failed? Could our marriage survive if I became the sole breadwinner? And what about his mother, Patricia? She'd never approved of me, always hinting that Simon could do better. How would she react to this news? I turned to look at Simon's sleeping face, so full of hope and determination. I loved him, but at that moment, I realized that love might not be enough to weather the storm that was coming. As I finally drifted off to sleep, one thought echoed in my mind. What have we done? The harsh, fluorescent lights of the hospital corridor seemed to mock me as I rushed towards the emergency room. My scrubs were wrinkled, my hair a mess, but I didn't care. I'd just received the call that would shatter the fragile peace I'd been clinging to for months. Caroline! Linda, my friend and fellow nurse, called out as I rounded the corner. I'm so sorry. I know you weren't supposed to be on shift tonight, but... I waved her off. It's fine. What happened? Linda's face was grim. It's Simon. He was brought in about an hour ago. Alcohol poisoning. My heart plummeted. What? But Simon hardly ever drinks. Well, he's certainly made up for lost time tonight, Linda said, her voice laced with concern. Caroline, it's bad. He was rambling about the business, about losing everything. I think he might have tried to hurt himself. I felt the world tilt on its axis. This couldn't be happening. Not Simon. Not my Simon. As if in a trance, I followed Linda into the ER. There he was, my husband, looking small and broken on the hospital bed. His face was ashen, dark circles under his eyes. An IV drip snaked into his arm, and the steady beep of the heart monitor filled the room. Oh, Simon, I whispered, taking his hand. What have you done? His eyes fluttered open, unfocused and glassy. Caroline? Is that you? I'm here, Simon. I'm here. He tried to sit up, but I gently pushed him back down. The business. He slurred. It's gone. Everything's gone. I've ruined us. My throat tightened. Shh, don't worry about that now. Just rest. But Simon was beyond rest. He gripped my hand with surprising strength. I'm so sorry, Caroline. I promised you the world, and I couldn't even keep the lights on. I'm a failure. Tears stung my eyes. You're not a failure, Simon. We'll figure this out. Together. He shook his head, his eyes wild. No, you don't understand. It's worse than you know. The investors, they're threatening to sue. And your savings. I used your savings for the last push. It's all gone. The room seemed to spin. My savings? The money I'd been squirreling away for years, dreaming of opening my own clinic someday. Simon, tell me you didn't. But I could see the truth in his eyes, clouded as they were with alcohol and shame. He had done it. He'd gambled everything. Our future, my dreams, on his failing business. I thought I could save it, he mumbled. Just needed a little more time, a little more money. I was so sure. I pulled my hand away, feeling as if I'd been burned. How could you, Simon? How could you do this without talking to me? I didn't want to worry you, he said, his voice small. I thought I could fix it. A bitter laugh escaped me. Fix it? Simon, you've destroyed everything we've worked for. everything we dreamed of. Suddenly, the door burst open, and Patricia stormed in, her face a mask of fury. "What have you done to my son?" she screeched, pointing an accusing finger at me. I stood up, my own anger rising to meet hers. "What I've done? Your precious son nearly drank himself to death and bankrupted us in the process." Patricia's eyes widened in shock, then narrowed dangerously. "Don't you dare blame Simon for this. If you had been a better wife, supported him properly." "Enough," I shouted, surprising even myself with the force of it. "I have supported Simon through everything. I've worked double shifts to keep us afloat while he chased his dreams. And now I find out he's thrown away our entire future without even consulting me." Simon stirred on the bed, reaching out weakly. "Caroline, please?" But I was beyond listening. The weight of everything, the stress, the betrayal, the shattered dreams came crashing down on me. I looked from Simon to Patricia, these two people who had taken so much and given so little in return. "I can't do this anymore," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I won't." As I turned to leave, Simon's broken voice followed me. "Caroline, don't go. I need you." I paused at the door, my hand on the handle. Without turning back, I said, "You should have thought of that before, Simon, before you gambled with our lives." And with that I walked out, leaving behind the ruins of the life I thought I knew. The shrill ring of my phone pierced the early morning silence, jolting me awake. I fumbled for it, my heart racing as I saw Simon's name on the screen. After everything that had happened, I almost didn't answer. But something, instinct maybe, made me press the green button. "Caroline?" Simon's voice was frantic. "It's Mom. She's had an accident." I sat bolt upright, sleep forgotten. "What happened?" "She fell down the stairs. She's at St. Mary's. Can you come, please?" I closed my eyes, torn between my instinct as a nurse to help and my anger at both Simon and Patricia. "Simon, I don't think—" "Please, Caroline," he interrupted, his voice breaking. "I know things are bad between us, but she's asking for you. You're the only nurse she trusts." Guilt washed over me. No matter how I felt about Patricia, I couldn't ignore a patient in need. "Fine. I'll be there in 20 minutes. The hospital was a whirlwind of activity when I arrived. I found Simon pacing outside Patricia's room, looking haggard and unkempt. "How is she?" I asked, professional mode kicking in. Simon ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "Broken hip, possible concussion. They're running tests now." I nodded, steeling myself before entering the room. Patricia lay in the bed, looking smaller and more fragile than I'd ever seen her. Her eyes lit up when she saw me, then quickly narrowed. "Oh, it's you," she said, her voice weak but still carrying that edge of disdain I knew so well. "I suppose Simon called you." I approached the bed, checking her vitals out of habit. "He did." "How are you feeling, Patricia?" She waved a hand dismissively. "Like I fell down a flight of stairs. How do you think I'm feeling?" I bit back a retort, reminding myself that she was injured and frightened. "Can you tell me what happened?" Patricia's face crumpled, and for a moment I saw past her prickly exterior to the vulnerable woman beneath. "I was trying to get the mail. I didn't want to use that blasted walker you and Simon got me. I thought I could manage, but—" She trailed off, a tear sliding down her cheek. Despite everything, I felt a pang of sympathy. I took her hand, surprised when she didn't pull away. "It's okay, Patricia. You're going to be all right." Just then, Simon walked in, his face a mask of concern. "What did the doctor say?" I turned to him, slipping into nurse mode. "They're still running tests, but it looks like she'll need surgery for the hip, and she'll need round-the-clock care during recovery." Simon's eyes met mine, and I saw the unspoken question there. Before he could voice it, Patricia spoke up. "I won't go to a nursing home," she declared. "I won't be shipped off like some unwanted parcel." Simon looked at me pleadingly. "Caroline, I know it's a lot to ask, but—" "No," I said firmly, cutting him off. "Simon, I can't quit my job to take care of your mother full-time. We've been over this." Patricia's grip on my hand tightened suddenly. "You'd abandon me in my time of need? After everything I've done for you?" I stared at her, incredulous. "Everything you've done for me? Patricia, you've never approved of me. You've criticized every decision I've made since the day Simon and I got married." "I was trying to make you better," Patricia snapped. "To make you worthy of my son." The room fell silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air. I pulled my hand away, feeling as if I'd been slapped. Simon stepped forward, his face a mix of shock and anger. Mom, how could you say that? But Patricia wasn't finished. She turned to Simon, her eyes blazing. If she won't take care of me, then you'll have to choose, Simon. It's her or me. I looked between them, this mother and son who had taken so much from me already. In that moment, I realized I was at a crossroads. The decision I made now would shape the rest of my life. Taking a deep breath, I squared my shoulders and prepared to fight for my future. I stormed out of Patricia's hospital room, my hands shaking with a mixture of rage and disbelief. Simon followed close behind, calling my name, but I couldn't bear to look at him. I made it to the parking lot before he caught up, grabbing my arm. Caroline, please wait, he pleaded, his voice desperate. I whirled around, yanking my arm free. Wait for what, Simon? For you to choose between your mother and your wife? For you to ask me once again to give up everything I've worked for? Simon's face crumpled. I'm sorry, I don't know what to do. Mom needs care, and we can't afford a nurse. Because you gambled away our savings, I snapped, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. He flinched as if I'd struck him. I know I messed up, but Caroline, she's my mother. I can't abandon her. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm raging inside me. And what about me, Simon? What about our life together? Am I supposed to put everything on hold indefinitely? Before he could answer, my phone buzzed. It was Linda. Caroline, where are you? The hospital board meeting is about to start. They're announcing the new head nurse position. My heart sank. In all the chaos, I'd completely forgotten about the meeting, the chance I'd been working towards for years. I'll be right there, I said, hanging up and turning back to Simon. I have to go. His eyes widened in panic. But what about Mom? What are we going to do? I shook my head, feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. I don't know, Simon. I need some time to think. I left him standing there, looking lost and broken, as I rushed back into the hospital. My mind was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions: guilt, anger, frustration, and an overwhelming sense of being torn in two. The board meeting was already in progress when I slipped in, taking a seat next to Linda. She shot me a concerned look, but I waved her off, focusing on the hospital administrator at the front of the room. After careful consideration, he was saying, we've decided to offer the position of head nurse, too. My heart pounded in my ears. This was it. The moment that could change everything. Caroline Mitchell. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Linda squeezed my arm, beaming, as congratulations erupted around me. I should have been elated, but all I felt was a crushing sense of dread. As the meeting adjourned, my phone buzzed again. Simon. Caroline, please come back. Mom's asking for you. She says she's sorry. I closed my eyes, feeling the walls closing in. On one side, the career I'd worked so hard for, the chance to make a real difference. On the other, my family, broken and dysfunctional as it was. Linda touched my shoulder gently. Caroline, are you okay? I looked at her, feeling tears well up in my eyes. I don't know what to do, Linda. I've just been offered my dream job, but Simon, he wants me to quit, to take care of his mother full-time. Linda's eyes widened in disbelief. He can't be serious? After everything you've been through? He is, I whispered, and I don't know if our marriage can survive if I say no. Linda took my hands in hers, her gaze steady and compassionate. Caroline, listen to me. You are an incredible nurse and an amazing woman. You've supported Simon through thick and thin, but at some point you have to put yourself first. Her words hit me like a thunderbolt. Put myself first. When was the last time I'd done that? As if on cue, my phone buzzed again. Simon's desperate plea glowed on the screen. Caroline, please. I need you. We need you. I stared at the message, feeling the weight of the decision before me. Stay and accept the position I dreamed of, or go back to Simon and Patricia, sacrificing my career for a family that had taken me for granted for so long. In that moment, I knew I had to make a choice, one that would change the course of my life forever. I stood in our living room, my hands trembling as I clutched the envelope containing my new contract. Head nurse. The position I'd dreamed of for years, and yet here I was, torn between my career and the remnants of my crumbling marriage. Simon paced back and forth, his face a mask of desperation. Caroline, please, you have to understand. Mom needs us. She has no one else. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation I knew would change everything. And what about what I need, Simon? What about the life we planned together? He stopped pacing, his eyes meeting mine. There was a hardness there I'd never seen before. Sometimes we have to make sacrifices for family. Sacrifices? I echoed, disbelief coloring my voice. I've been making sacrifices since the day you quit your job to chase your dreams that left us bankrupt and broken. Simon flinched as if I'd struck him. That's not fair. I was trying to build a better life for us. And how did that work out? I shot back, years of pent-up frustration boiling over. Now you want me to give up everything I've worked for to take care of your mother, a woman who's never shown me an ounce of respect? She's trying, Caroline. She apologized, remember? I laughed bitterly. One apology doesn't erase years of criticism and contempt. Simon's face hardened. So that's it? You're choosing your job over your family? Family? I repeated, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. What family, Simon? The one where I give and give until there's nothing left of me? The one where my dreams don't matter as long as you and your mother are taken care of? He stepped closer, his voice low and dangerous. I never thought you could be so selfish. Something snapped inside me. Selfish? I've supported you through everything, Simon. I stood by you when you quit your job. I worked double shifts to keep us afloat while you chased your dreams. I've given everything to this marriage, and it's still not enough for you. Simon's eyes flashed with anger. If that's how you feel, maybe we should just end this now. The room fell silent, his words hanging in the air between us. I felt as if all the oxygen had been sucked out of the room. What are you saying? I whispered, hardly daring to breathe. Simon's jaw clenched. I'm saying you have a choice to make, Caroline. Take care of my mother, or we get a divorce. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I stared at him, this man I'd loved since high school, now a stranger demanding I choose between my self-respect and our marriage. In that moment, something crystallized within me, a clarity I'd been lacking for years. Without a word, I walked to the desk and pulled out a folder. Inside were the divorce papers I'd had drawn up months ago, but never had the courage to use. Simon's eyes widened as I placed them on the coffee table between us. Caroline, what are you doing? My hand shook as I picked up a pen, but my voice was steady. I'm making a choice, Simon. The choice you forced me to make. Wait, he said, panic creeping into his voice. Let's talk about this. We can figure something out. But I was beyond talking. Years of suppressed anger, resentment, and disappointment fueled my actions as I signed my name on the dotted line. Simon lunged forward, trying to snatch the papers away, but I held firm. Caroline, stop! You can't do this! I looked up at him, tears streaming down my face, but resolve burning in my chest. I can, and I am. I choose me, Simon. For once in my life, I choose me. As I walked out the door, leaving Simon staring at the signed divorce papers, I felt a strange mix of terror and exhilaration. I had no idea what the future held, but for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. The pounding on my apartment door jolted me awake. I glanced at the clock, 3:17 a.m. My heart raced as I stumbled to the door, already knowing who it was. Caroline, open up, please! Simon's voice was ragged, desperate. I hesitated, my hand on the doorknob. It had been 3 days since I'd walked out, 3 days of silence broken only by a barrage of increasingly frantic voicemails and texts. Against my better judgment, I opened the door. Simon stood there, disheveled and wild-eyed. The scent of alcohol wafted off him. What are you doing here, Simon? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. He pushed past me into the apartment. We need to talk. You can't do this, Caroline. You can't throw away our marriage like this. I closed the door, steeling myself. I'm not throwing anything away. I'm saving myself. Simon ran his hands through his hair, pacing like a caged animal. I'll do anything. I'll get a job. I'll find a way to take care of Mom without you quitting. Just, please, don't leave me. The desperation in his voice tugged at my heart, but I forced myself to remember why I'd left. It's too late for that, Simon. You made your choice when you gave me that ultimatum. He whirled on me, eyes blazing. And you made yours when you signed those papers. How could you do that? 20 years together, and you throw it all away in an instant? Anger flared within me. An instant? Is that what you think this was? Simon, I've been dying inside for years, watching you chase your dreams while mine withered away. I've given everything to you and your mother, and it's never been enough. That's not true. he protested weakly. Isn't it? I countered. When was the last time you asked about my dreams? When was the last time you stood up to your mother when she belittled me? Simon's face crumpled. I'm sorry. I know I've made mistakes, but we can fix this. We have to fix this. I shook my head, feeling a strange calm settle over me. No, Simon, we can't. Some things, once broken, can't be put back together. He stepped closer, his eyes pleading. Caroline, I love you. Doesn't that count for anything? For a moment I wavered. The weight of our shared history pressed down on me. High school sweethearts, the early struggles of our marriage, the dreams we'd once shared. But then I remembered the loneliness, the constant sacrifices, the feeling of being slowly erased. Love isn't enough, I said softly. Not when it comes at the cost of my self-respect, my dreams, my very identity. Simon's face hardened. So that's it? You're really choosing your job over our family? I'm choosing myself, I replied, my voice growing stronger. For the first time in years, I'm putting myself first. He laughed bitterly. And what about Mom? Are you just going to abandon her? I felt a flash of guilt, quickly replaced by resolve. Patricia has other options. There are care facilities, home health aides. It's not my responsibility to give up my life for her. She'll never forgive you for this, Simon spat. I can live with that, I said, surprised to find I meant it. Simon's shoulders sagged, defeat written in every line of his body. I don't know how to live without you, Caroline. For a moment, I saw the boy I'd fallen in love with all those years ago. But he wasn't that boy anymore, and I wasn't that girl. You'll learn, I said gently. We both will. He looked at me one last time, his eyes filled with a mixture of anger, desperation, and something that might have been respect. Then, without another word, he turned and walked out the door. As it closed behind him, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with challenges I couldn't yet imagine. But for the first time in years, I felt truly free. I took a deep breath, ready to face whatever came next, on my own terms. 6 months after signing the divorce papers, I found myself sitting in a quaint coffee shop, my hands wrapped around a steaming latte. The aroma of freshly ground beans filled the air, a comforting contrast to the tumultuous emotions swirling inside me. Caroline? A familiar voice called out. I looked up to see Mark, Simon's former colleague, approaching my table. Mark, hi, I said, gesturing for him to join me. It's been a while. He sat down, his expression a mix of concern and curiosity. I heard about you and Simon. I'm sorry things didn't work out. I nodded, surprised to find that the pain I'd expected to feel had dulled to a distant ache. Thank you. It's been an adjustment. Mark hesitated, then leaned in. Listen, Caroline, there's something you should know about Simon, something I probably should have told you years ago. My heart quickened. What is it? Simon was never as competent as he made himself out to be, Mark said, his voice low. At work, he was always taking credit for other people's ideas, schmoozing with the bosses while others did the heavy lifting. When he left to start his own business, we all knew it was doomed to fail. I sat back, stunned, but he always seemed so confident, so sure of himself. Mark shook his head. It was all a facade. He was terrified of failure, of not living up to everyone's expectations. I think that's why he clung to you so tightly. You were his safety net. As Mark's words sank in, I felt a strange mix of anger and relief wash over me. Anger at the years I'd spent propping up Simon's fragile ego, and relief that I'd finally broken free. Thank you for telling me this, Mark, I said, my voice steady. It helps. After Mark left, I sat there, lost in thought. Memories flooded back. Simon's grandiose plans, his reluctance to face reality, his constant need for validation. How had I not seen it before? My phone buzzed, jolting me back to the present. It was Linda. Turn on the news. Channel 5. Confused, I pulled out my tablet and loaded the local news stream. My jaw dropped as I saw the headline, Local Businessman Arrested for Fraud. There, being led away in handcuffs, was Simon. The reporter's voice filled in the details. A Ponzi scheme, investors defrauded of millions, years of financial manipulation finally exposed. I sat there, frozen, as the full impact of what I'd escaped hit me. If I'd stayed, if I'd given in to Simon's demands, I would have been dragged down with him. My phone rang again. This time, it was Patricia. Caroline. Her voice was uncharacteristically subdued. I owe you an apology. I held my breath, hardly daring to believe what I was hearing. I saw the news, she continued. All these years, I thought Simon could do no wrong, and I blamed you for not supporting him enough. But now I see, you were the strong one. You saw what I couldn't or wouldn't see. Tears pricked at my eyes. Thank you, Patricia. That means a lot. After we hung up, I sat there, overwhelmed by the day's revelations. The Caroline of 6 months ago would have been devastated, would have blamed herself for not seeing through Simon's lies. But I wasn't that Caroline anymore. I stood up, gathered my things, and walked out of the coffee shop. The sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink. As I walked towards my car, I felt lighter than I had in years. Yes, I'd lost my marriage. Yes, I'd been deceived. But I'd also found something invaluable, myself. I thought about the head nurse position I'd accepted, the new apartment I'd made my own, the friendships I'd rekindled. For the first time in years, I was living life on my own terms. As I drove home, I realized that this wasn't an ending at all. It was a beginning, a chance to rewrite my story, to chase my own dreams, to love myself as fiercely as I'd once loved Simon. The road ahead was uncertain, but I was ready to face it. Because now I knew the truth. I was stronger than I'd ever imagined, and the best chapters of my life were yet to be written.